You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to an international break edition of Achtung Millwall. What do you do when you've got no Millwall content? Listeners, you talk to Merv Payne because he's normally got a new book out. And here he is, it's Merv. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
No, you're welcome. And you do indeed have a fantastic, if I may say so, new book, 30, Millwall's 3 Decades at the Den. It's available now on victorpublishing.co.uk, $9.99. I really like this idea, Merv. $12.50 if you want it signed by the author.
Yeah.
I like that.
That sort of come about a few years ago with one of my previous books. People started saying, "Oh, can you do me a signed one?" And so I thought I'd preempt it and see if there was any take. And yeah, some people seem to like. I think it's a nice sort of gift idea sometimes. So if
it's nice.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's a nice production, listeners. I recommend it. It is, of course, this year, 30 years, unbelievably, we've been at the new Den. But before I speak to Merv about the book and other matters relating to the world of publishing, we, as you know, every show, listeners, we have a tie-in with Pundit Games, which is a wonderful board game, quiz game, football. You score goals on a board by answering a succession of football questions, one after the other. If you get 5 questions in a row, you score a goal. And it's a great, subject matters to cover all ages. I think everyone is interested in football, going back to my ancient era, possibly Merv's ancient era too, up to the 2010s and the Premier League and now pretty much. But before each show, I'm going to go bounce Merv now. I'm going to bounce him with a question, actually, because we give a taster question just so that you get a sense of what the quiz game's all about. You visit punditgames.co.uk to buy it. Every sale supports the Lions Food Hub, so it's a fantastic cause. Everyone made through with the Millwall linkage on there. But anyway, here's our taster question. This is I think Merv will get this one.
No pressure.
No pressure. This comes from Premier League football in the 1990s. So I've picked my era for you, Merv. Some of them are really obscure out there, but this one is, I think, reasonably straightforward. Apparently this player has 2 first names. I didn't know that, but he was also the first £1 million goalkeeper in British football when he signed for Crystal Palace in 1989. 23 England caps, involved in 4 major international tournaments. He retired in 2006 with 666 senior appearances. Goalkeeper for Crystal Palace. Do you want to answer it, Merv? I've got another one to close. Yeah. So you answer that one if you want.
You know what? I'm showing my age.
He don't know.
I know exactly who it is. I can see him. I can see his face. I know he signed from Bristol Rovers. Nigel Martin. That was it.
Nigel Martin. You got it.
I couldn't remember his bloody name. He's definitely part of my age. I think. I go blank with people's names. It's really, really embarrassing. But I'll be in conversation with someone about football or whatever, and you'll say, "Oh, do you remember?" And the name will just escape me, and I'll have to describe them. And I was thinking,
I know the feeling. It's when his ex-girlfriends that you've been out with, and you can't remember the bloody names. That will happen to you, listeners. Don't matter how old you are, that will happen to you.
It came to me. I could see his face. I could see he had a really
mustachioed.
Quite a pathetic moustache, I think, if I remember. But yeah, I remember him signing for him around about I think it was just after they got walloped 9-0 at Liverpool, I think.
That's right.
They brought him in, I think.
I didn't realise he'd played for England so many times. 23 caps for England.
I didn't know. No, I thought he was on the fringes. But yeah, it came to me eventually. But yeah, I'm one of those people that I'll sit at home watching the quiz programmes at home, screaming the answers, and I know them all. And then when I'm actually put on the spot, I just won't get anything.
I like the fact he got 666, number of the beast, according to Iron Maiden. Yeah. Senior appearances. Anyway, I've got another question to close our conversation.
Okay.
You can look forward to that later on, mate. So big welcome, Merv. 3 decades at the Den. Where does the time go, Merv?
It's scary, isn't it? That's a whole generation of Millwall supporters who've only known that stadium, which is quite because I find it interesting talking to supporters of different ages online, who obviously some of which just didn't know the previous ground, and they're sort of in awe of it, of some of the stories about it and the old pictures of it, and they always pop up from time to time on these. I mean, there's some fantastic Facebook groups out there. One of them is co-run by a long time Millwall supporter, and all these pictures crop up of the old place, and obviously with all these modern stadiums now, it looks comically basic, doesn't it? And it's just this big concrete bowl, and it's quite amusing. But and it's I think it makes the legend of it even stronger when we're so lucky sort of just watch our football there.
Yeah. No, I consider myself blessed, if that's the right word.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. There. Yeah. And like I say, I think people are so used to clubs moving ground now, getting new grounds, and every ground you go to seems to be one of these brand new identity kit stadiums. I think people forget Millwall were quite a trailblazer at the time. I think we were only the third club in sort of recent times, or maybe even since the war, to move to a new stadium. I think Walsall and Scunthorpe did it a couple of years before.
Scunthorpe did it, yeah. I think Walsall had done it, but
mid-80s, I think that was. But
in major, I'm going to be very disparaging on Walsall and Scunthorpe. I don't mean to be, but in major club terms, we were the first brand new stadium, certainly in league football in modern times, from scratch. I'm talking about. Certainly, I think we're the first new built London stadium since Highbury, which was shortly after we moved to Coldblow Lane. So it was quite a feat. I mean, I sometimes think, a lot of us had mixed feelings at the time. I don't know how you were, Merv, but I both wanted the kind of shock at the new, but I also knew that we were leaving behind something at Coldblow Lane. How did you feel at the time of the move? Were you...
I can remember. I think I remember where I was when the news sort of broke. I think we were playing Forest away in a midweek game in the old First Division. We got beat 4-1. It was and I think that's when the news first came out, and everyone was quite sceptical about it because we'd had the whole Super Den thing throughout the 70s and early 80s, but that all focused around redeveloping the existing ground, which I think was quite acceptable. But the thought of moving somewhere totally new was really it was a bit disturbing, if anything. And in fact, a friend of mine who I used to go with at the time vowed he refused to go if they left the Den. But I think that short experience in the First Division taught us that we weren't able to make the most of those couple of good years that we had when the place was packed out, certainly the first season. And I think we understood that we had to sort of move with the times, and very suddenly the whole game shifted, didn't it? After that first season in the First Division, the money suddenly started pumping into it, and it became
football was moving on, whether we wanted to or not. I take my hat off to Reg Burr because it wasn't
definitely
wouldn't have been an easy decision. Reg was many things, but I think he did understand who we were as a club and that very deep sense of identity attached to the ground at Coldblow. There had been so many good, bad, and all sorts of incidents there. So to move was, you were losing something. I must admit, this has always been my feeling ever since we moved to I still call it the new ground, listeners. But I really liked the new ground. It was very odd at first when we first got there. I remember being blown away, Merv, on the Sporting Lisbon game, thinking,
yes,
we'd achieved this. It was a brand new stadium, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around that fact that this spanking brand new, brilliantly lit, continental-looking stadium was ours, and we'd done it. Because you get used to kind of the little Millwall type of idea that we're forever the underdogs. And I think it was a real ambitious pitch, wasn't it, by Reg?
Yeah, definitely was. I think Eamon Dunphy's book in the 70s, Only a Game, really immortalised it when he described it, didn't he? One of the chapters about looking like the approach looks like something out of a Jack the Ripper novel or movie or something like that. And
he described it as a trap.
That was it, a huge trap. Because he described it both as from the viewpoint of him when he was a visiting player with York, and when he he realised what an asset it was. I think that was the worry. I remember some friends sort of saying, obviously we lost that Sporting Lisbon game 2-1.
Yeah.
The first league game when we got battered by Southend.
Southend, wasn't it? On telly.
Yeah, 4-1. They absolutely slaughtered us. And there was this feeling of, we've built this ground that everyone else wants to come and play. Everyone's enjoying playing at, and we've done the complete reverse of what we had at the old place. We've got a place where people think, oh, this is nice. At Southend, no disrespect, but Rootsall's a bit of a dump, and they come there and thought, this is lovely. It's made them up the game. But I think, fortunately, we quickly turned that around. I think that first season at the ground, I think was one of our best home records. We ended up one of our best home records in the 30 years. I think we were really strong at home after that little blip.
I mean, you've picked out a whole series of good, bad, and ugly games across 30 years, dear
yeah.
listeners. That's probably a good way to put it. But you've picked out one that I would have picked out the same, because the first time that I really felt that we were at home in our home, Merv, was a game you've picked out for that 93-94 season, which was a famous win, 3-0 over Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
The day of Etienne Verviers, and it was just the one. It was the first time I remember, apart from the initial shock and surprise that we'd built this beautiful looking stadium, but that's the first time it felt like home. It felt like a
Yeah, I
Millwall
totally agree.
game.
Yeah.
And something that I really like, we were just talking off air, listeners, about the book that Merv's put together here. You've got this great idea of, I don't know if they're called barcodes, they're like little scan codes. You see them at the supermarket, but I call it a barcode. It's not a barcode, I don't know. But you can scan it and it'll take you to the YouTube footage. Great, that's a great idea, Merv. I love that idea.
It's a QR code. So yeah, so you
QR code.
Yeah. So your smartphone will scan it. It just takes you to a web page, really. But I wanted to do something sort of more interactive for a while, and I looked at AR, which is like augmented reality, where you can put a picture in and you put your phone over it and it plays a video. But that wasn't feasible, unfortunately. So I mean, QR codes are not that new, but it came about from my own sort of bad habits, if you like, from reading, where I'll sit and reading a book and I'll have my phone to hand and I'll sort of stop reading if I come to an interesting bit. It might mention a certain place, or if it's a football book, it might mention a match, and I'll think, I fancy watching that, so I'll flick YouTube on and watch the match. And I thought, if anyone else has that same sort of bad habit, if you like, of reading, it might be handy to just shorten the process a bit, and take them straight to the match. Because I know my wife will sort of look up and say, "Are you reading the book or are you on your phone? What are you doing?" And say, "Well, I'm a bit of both." So I thought, why not maybe make that just something a bit different. But I wanted to make the book in general. I like to try and put some different things in the books that I do. Sometimes it will be little snippets from the news or something like that.
I like it.
And this one really, I suppose, is a bit of a mishmash of different things. I didn't want it to be just a chronological order of seasons and matches at the ground in 30 years. I didn't want it to be full of just a bunch of facts and figures.
No.
So it's a mishmash. There's some sort of
it's a personal take. I think
there's a few personal stories as well in there. Yeah.
And I like that in there. There's got some great photos. One's just made me laugh, listeners, from the early 90s, is Andy May's dad sitting on. I don't even know who this bloke was. Merv. It certainly wasn't his dad, but he became known. This chap ran on the pitch for younger listeners. He staged a one-man protest at the poor displays at the time. There is nothing new at Millwall, listeners. Disgruntlement with your manager is not a new event. And this guy ran on the pitch with a very 1990s suit kind of, look, and sat on the pitch. And there's this great photo of Andy May, one of our. I quite liked Andy May.
I loved Andy May. He's a great player. Yeah,
good player. In the Captain Morgan strip, and he's kind of got his hands on his hips, looking at the man became known as his dad. You can see a resemblance there, can't you?
Definitely. I think it was the Lion Roars. I think the Lion Roars has to take credit. I think Paul said at the Lion Roars. Probably, I think he was still doing it then. Took the credit for that. The picture was brilliant, and the look on Andy May's face, if to say, "Oh, Dad, you're showing me up here," and the bloke just plonked himself on the floor, and he's like saying he's in his suit and smart trousers, and obviously come straight from the office,
from work. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, with a few pints in between, and decided whatever he was watching wasn't good. I think it might have been a midweek.
I think it was Paul Vale.
I think it was. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
We're getting beat 3-1 at home, listeners, by Paul Vale. Yeah. So under Mick McCarthy, and I always thought was an overrated manager. But anyway, you can imagine the disgruntlement, listeners. So this guy decided to stage a one-man protest, which you don't get that anymore, do you? You don't get one-man protests anymore. More's the pity.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could track him down. I think the line was to try and track him down. But yeah, I mean, if he's out there, it'd be great.
If he's out there,
if anyone knows him, he's 30 years on. If he's still around, but yeah.
3 decades, listeners. The stories are manifold throughout it all. I mean, I'm just looking at Kulkov and Uran here. This is 95, 96. So this was another glamour event of the mid-90s. Little did we all know at the time, Merv, we were teetering on the edge of a financial precipice, and I don't think the arrival of the two Russians really helped our bank balance by any means.
No, definitely not.
But they were so frustrating because you could just tell that, but for the Boney M line, but for the drinking, the whoring, and the lusting, or whatever else they got up to, they'd have been good players, wouldn't they? You know, there was two quality turns in there.
They did show some flashes at times, but yeah, some of the stories. And I spoke to Alex Ray, one of my previous books, and asked him, what was it like, and he just said they were bragging about how much money they were getting paid, really, and pretty much brazenly admitting that they were just there for just going through the motions and just collecting their money, and felt they were sort of a notch above everyone else and swaggered around the place. And I think we had one of their translators on the payroll as well, and I think it was Alex that said that, and it turned out that both of them spoke perfectly good English, and yet they're this Russian so I think we got well and truly tucked up from all angles on that one. But
this was Peter Mead, wasn't it? It was, anyone that ever says Millwall don't try and live the dream or whatever the football cliche is of the time now, we did have a go in the mid-90s, and it very nearly led to the extinction of the club. So
yes, it did. Yeah.
Best be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I mean, and on that subject, obviously you've got here the 96-97 season, which was a shit show. I think that's probably a good description. You've got it in the book here. So just to make the point that the book is not all fame and glory, it's not all good times. It covers the gamut of Millwall events and incidents.
Yeah, I wanted to I set myself this task of picking out one particular game from each season. So obviously that was quite easy for some of the seasons, but others it was pretty tricky. But at the same time, like I say, I wanted it to be sort of warts and all. And sometimes there was a game which perhaps was pretty unremarkable, but went down in history as being a real turning point. And one of them, I think, being like Neil Harris's debut, because I mean, there in itself was a great story. Where, it was never confirmed, but legend has it, Billy Bonds, who was manager at the time, didn't really rate Harris. No. We had him in from Cambridge City. He didn't really fancy him, so rumour has it he sort of threw him into the team, thinking that he would struggle and that would
sink rather than swim.
To try and prove a point, and he did the reverse. He did okay, and of course, the rest of that is history. But I tried to think about that game and that just that moment when he came on as a substitute, and all what lay ahead of him, as both a player and a manager, and that for me was quite a nice sort of turning point. And then there's another, I think one of the games I picked out was when we got beat 3-0 home by Fulham.
Yes,
the logic behind that the logic behind that was how quickly football can change, because I think about just over a year before that we were playing Rochdale at home, which, with all respect to Rochdale, I mean, playing Rochdale at home is like the epitome of you've hit rock bottom in football in many ways, and you're thinking, and then suddenly we're playing Fulham at home. It's a midweek game. The place is packed. The atmosphere is brilliant. It's live on Sky, and for 45 minutes we gave them the fright of their lives. We could have been 2 or 3 goals to the good, and we were on the very brink of a place in the playoffs to get in the Premier League. So even though the end result was a bad one, for me that was a good marker for how quickly we got to come so far as well. And it's worth sort of looking back and thinking, well, okay, the result wasn't great, but it was still a bit of a landmark.
It was one of the great nights. I mean, we often talk about the atmosphere and the new ground. There I go again, listeners. It's 30 years old now, but it was designed with acoustics in mind. The actual design of the stadium was lifted some of the design of Ibrox Park in Glasgow.
That's right.
Glasgow Rangers had not long redeveloped their stadium using the same company that would go on to design it then, and because there was a desire for it to be something like Coldblow Lane, which obviously is atmosphere on its day, because it wasn't always great at Coldblow Lane, young listeners. Not when there's about 2,000 people in there, like I was in a couple of times in the 70s. But the new stadium was designed with acoustics in mind. I sometimes think we take our atmosphere so much for granted, Merv.
Yeah.
You read online after a game, the atmosphere was shit today. Well, you want to go to some other grounds, and
definitely, yeah.
What we take for granted is eye-bulging stuff from other clubs' perspective. But we are used to. I don't know what you get used to.
Yeah, you do. Stuff. Yeah, I was watching some Arsenal match the other week. I can't remember who it was now. And I noticed they got about 25 blokes behind one of the goals, all wearing all black. And apparently that's their little crew, which has got together
It's their ultra crew.
to improve the atmosphere. The Ashburton, it sounds like an Enid Blyton, the Ashburton gang or something they call it. I don't know what it is. But the whole, and obviously the stories of the Palace Ultras is legendary. How they sort of meet up every week to exchange song sheets and designs for funny banners. And flag. And the fact that they're proud of that, I think, says all you need to know about Palace, really. But it's just everything that's wrong with football. And I think because Millwall has always been it is spontaneous, and that's what makes it so good when it's good. It's it's brilliant when it's good, and you notice it when it's quiet. You hear so many managers saying, "Oh, it's a tough place to come and play, or it's a tough place to get a result." And I was pleased we sort of silence the crowd. It's just a big thing even now. It's just to silence the crowd. And that's something to be definitely proud of.
I think it's the spontaneity is a good choice of word, because often. So I was thinking the other day of moments where the den ignites is often for slightly irrational reasons. It can often be in a game where there's nothing obviously huge at stake, and it'll be some moment of injustice or a player that gives it some to the crowd. It could be anything, and suddenly you'll have it on. It will blow up. It's like
I think a good example,
kerosene or something.
Yes, definitely, a good example. I think one of the matches I picked, which was the Stoke win when we were down to 9 men.
Just looking at it.
And it was just another match, and I think we were at the time we were preoccupied with getting to Wembley in the autographs. Right. I think, we had obviously a young squad, a very sort of paper thin squad, which I think it had been affected by injuries and suspensions, and Stoke were obviously a big fish in a little pond at the time and desperate to get out, and we'd have accepted getting beat 2 or 3-0, and suddenly we're down to 9 men, and I just remember the atmosphere just lifted, and Stoke couldn't lay a glove on us. It was brilliant, and that's exactly as you described there. Sometimes it's something really innocuous that can turn a nothing game into a game to remember down at Millwall.
I've sometimes toyed with the idea of what would be the perfect Millwall match, and it has to involve some early injustice, someone getting sent off unjustly, or a referee that's clearly bent and against you, and you need certain ingredients to really make the volatile cocktail come to life. And this was probably such a game. Young squad, talented squad. And it came to life, and there is. You got a QR code. I better get the lingo right, listeners. A QR code to take you to that very match, 2-0 over Stoke. That's fantastic. I love that idea. And so it would go on. We got the years of Theo Pathetis promotion. These were good times. The turn of the century. Good times. Mill 5, Oldham 0 legendary game when we went up as champions of the third division. It was Division 2, I think it was called. And then the near miss promotion season. It's a roller coaster following Millwall, and there's you can't talk about 3 decades at the Den without the bad times as well as the good times. But I'm just looking at the Millwall 1 Wolves 0 game from 2001-2, which was a wonderful.
I was going to mention that. I think. You talk to some sort of Millwall fans of a certain age, and that one always crops up. I think that's when we realised how good night matches, because obviously night matches at the old Den were legendary, weren't they? There was something. There was something about them. If it was a big match, and one of my favourites at the old ground was the promotion season 87-88, and we played Birmingham at home. And I think it was the first midweek game of the season, and we went 1-0 down, and we didn't look very good at all, and then we sort of clawed our way back into it. I think we equalised, just before half time, and we got 2 late goals, and I think it was only about 6,000 or 7,000 in the ground. And it sounded and felt once those lights came on, and sort of the place was shrouded in darkness. The atmosphere was just unbelievable for 6,000 or 7,000 sort of noise they could make. But that Wolves game, the Claridge penalty. It was wonderful. The tension building up to that, him taking that spot kick, knowing how important it was. I think at the time Wolves were second and we were third in the table. And it was literally, it's a cliche, a white hot atmosphere, but you could actually feel the heat in the place that night that atmosphere generated.
Yeah, it was electricity, and also you had the backstory, I suppose you'd call it, of Steve Claridge, this player at the very much at the end of his seat, 36 was his shirt number. He was 36 years old. Been round as a character, football character. Been around the track many times, and there he was taking one of our crucial penalties. and the rest of that season is, lost in infamy now, I suppose. But that was a
unfortunately.
wonderful night. And then obviously we had the kind of the darkness of, I suppose we had the FA Cup run there. I was going to say the darkness of the 2000s. It started off quite well, didn't it? With under Dennis Wise, with the Mother's Day massacre, which was another standout moment. And then the FA Cup run to the cup final.
Yeah,
I never would have dreamed that would have happened, Merv.
No, I think when I mentioned that season in the book, I think it was just a bizarre season because we looked so much better than the two teams that actually played in the playoff final, which was Palace and West Ham.
Yeah,
we got the better of both of them in the league, and because of that cup final, which obviously we enjoyed so much and we were so desperate to get to, and it was just a great occasion. But I think because of that, we probably missed out one of our best ever chances of getting in the Premier League. And I think I sort of toyed with the idea at the end of would we have sort of like sacrificed one for the other, or had we managed to get to the playoffs and perhaps beat Palace in the playoff final, beat West Ham 4-1 at home, and get to the FA Cup final. Was asking too much? But all that was possible. But of course, it ended up with our playing in Europe for the first time as well. But it was a time that you can't believe. Looking back now, I don't think we realise just how good that sort of time was.
No, I mean, the Millwall story goes in cycles, usually about 5 years cycles. And you're right. I mean, we stood on the brink of potential Premier League football if only we'd have seized the chance. But as it was with the cup final, we qualified for Europe, which you wouldn't do nowadays. No. I still love the fact we're the only South London club to ever qualify for Europe. I don't think Palace ever have they?
No, this is and I think that's. I think I make that point. I quite enjoy making that point in the book. But I was chatting to I was chatting to a friend of mine who's a big Brighton fan the other week. Who was getting all excited about it. And he said, I can't believe we're in Europe. I said, that's boring. We've done that. So that's nearly 20 years ago since we did that.
Been there and done it.
Yeah, boring. Yeah. You're only just in Europe, are you?
No, so not all is cracked up to me. No. I still think the sight of the UEFA flag flying on the Dockers stand, as we now call it, was one of the most surreal sights I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's one image that I would take with me for the rest of my days, I think. And the rest of the 2000s, you got a 4-0 win over Rotherham in 2007. It was fairly sparse stuff until we started getting into the Leeds rivalry of the late 2009, 10, and that kind of era, like the semi-final games.
Yeah, when Leeds ended up when Leeds ended up in the third division, whatever you want to call it, which was very comical.
Yeah,
to sort of play them in the playoffs, to draw them in the playoffs when we hadn't managed to actually win a playoff match up until that point, I think, and then to play them at home and for Harris to score the only goal. But that was an easy pick for that season. But I mentioned in the book about obviously the second leg at Leeds. I think most Millwall supporters would have thought we were up against it, only having been 1-0 ahead.
Yeah, we took a 1-0 lead there, didn't we?
Yeah, 1-0 lead there, and then Leeds get a penalty, and you think, this is it. And then I think Fordy saves it, doesn't he? And they score it, and you expect that onslaught from Leeds at their place, don't you? Which we got. Yeah. When, in the two thrilling games we had there, when we won 4-3, we were 2-0 up, and they come back to 3-2, and we beat them. And then I think the following season we were 2 up again, and we lost 3-2. But there's that sort of onslaught which you're waiting for, and then of course up pops Jimmy Abdu and wins the game, which is probably
an unlikely goal scorer. An unlikely goal scorer. He was
many
things, but never a goal scorer. Jimmy.
That picture of him celebrating, that picture of him sat on the floor with his arms outspread, is one of the legendary Millwall images, I think.
I was looking at another legendary Millwall image, which comes from the following season, 2009-10, which was a promotion season. This is the image of Robbo in the tunnel.
In the tunnel,
bellowing at full cry there, and as the two teams lined up to come out for the playoff game with a head bandaged Steve Morrison just behind him.
Yeah, that's
wonderful image.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about atmospheres. I remember recording that because obviously it was live on Sky. I remember recording it and watching it back. And of course, they caught, because they with Sky being Sky, they stick microphones everywhere, don't they? So so you caught the full fury of Robbo's war cry as he came out, and that's to apologise for the language, which was brilliant. And then you talk about atmospheres at night matches at Millwall. I mean, I think every time, it was amazing. You talk about the cliche of the 12th man. That there was absolutely no doubt that night that the crowd then got them over the line. And I think he had a situation where Huddersfield players were going over to take a throw in, and people were running down the walkways to have a go at them.
To abuse them, basically.
Just shout at them. And there was I think the cameras caught the Huddersfield manager, Lee Clark. I nearly did it again.
Lee Clark.
Lee Clark, yeah. And I think he turned and sort of exasperated, sort of said like "hell was bells." But at the time, I think it looked like he was saying, "I fucking hate this place." That was, But even so, he looked pissed off. The Huddersfield players didn't know what had hit them, and I think they thought they could come there and maybe nick a 1-0 or nick it on penalties. But for the minute,
there's a long list of managers, not really away managers, opponents, really not liking the stadium. I remember Joe Royle always moaning when he was managing Manchester City back when they weren't.
Yeah.
When they weren't a global force, listeners might seem strange, but they were in the third division with us. And I think it was the kind of fundamental humiliation. I think Leeds never got over this, Merv, of major name clubs that should be playing in Europe getting dragged down the old Kent Road into South
absolutely.
for a pounding. There's something deeply humiliating about the fact they have to be there in the first place, let alone try and get a result. But I mean, Joe Royle was another one didn't like it.
Yeah, I think clubs like that, they go to a lot of grounds and they assume they're going to get some sort of grudging respect, but obviously it doesn't happen at Millwall.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way at all.
No. And so we go through promotion, obviously, into the Championship. We win at Wembley. You got the game against a great game, 3-0 win over Crystal Palace, which another day where the atmosphere just overtook the players' heads almost. I remember was it the TV pundit? What's his name? I can't think of his name. Clinton Morrison. Losing the plot out there because they were wearing all black and he had orange boots on. He was getting called Daffy Duck.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like this theatre of the cruel. It really, really got him, and he lost the plot completely. Wonderful stuff. So it would go on. Playoff win 2010, and then obviously. Cup running, the third division cup run, didn't we? Had the Leicester and 1-0, got that here. That was a wonderful atmosphere. Getting the Leicester home game.
Yeah. I mean, there's
incredible atmosphere.
There's a clip going around on YouTube. I don't know, and I don't know. It was good timing, but it was the build up to that goal. I don't know why they chose to switch their phone at that particular moment, but it's actually the build up to the goal and again. The roar that greeted that goal, like it sort of distorted the sound on the phone. It was brilliant. It was really, it's just brilliant.
A mate of mine, I used to work with him. Lived on Millwall. He supported someone else, Spurs. But he lived on the other side of Southwark Park. And he said it sounded like an earthquake when the goal went in. It felt almost seismic in terms of. The impact, and as you say, you've got the other side of the coin. Listeners, there's always the other side. There's the 3-0 loss at home to Fulham, and that takes us into more recent times. The Everton game, turn the fucking screen off. It's Neil Harris. There's a repeat personality across these 3 decades, really, isn't he? Neil Harris is
you can't escape it, really.
Huge. And so it goes. It's a wonderful production. I take my hat off to you for coming. And there's even a nice tribute to John Berylson at the end.
I thought that had to be done. I think. Yeah.
Absolutely, and a little bit of statistics at the end of it there. Really nice production. Victor Publishing, dear listeners, victorpublishing.co.uk. There's a shop on there. You will also see, if you go onto the website, not only can you buy that book, 30 Years at the Den, Merv's book, a wide range of other stuff you're doing now, Merv. I follow Victor Publishing, despite never always promising Merv I was going to write something for him, never doing it. I do follow the products. You're getting quite a range of stuff there, music stuff and other clubs as well on the website.
Yeah, I set it up about 3 years ago, and just encourage people who perhaps have. There's a lot of people like yourself that want to write a book or have already written one, and don't really get a look in with your traditional publishers because all they're interested in is easy sales, sort of reality TV stars and that sort of thing. And I felt there was a lot of people out there that have written books or have got, some people who perhaps done books maybe 15, 20 years ago, and they're just not for sale anymore. So we sort of thought try and provide something for them to get their books out there, and it's worked quite well. You know, we've got, like you say, quite a variety out there now. A lot of them have come from just people I've met over the years, or sort of friends or associates and stuff that have done different sort of books. Photographers, even, like there's a guy who photographed every football ground in the 80s.
Right.
He lost a load of them, but what he saved, we put into a book, which is a collection of images from football grounds in the 80s, which is it's a nice one that sort of fits in with the whole, you know, looking back at the 30 years of the Den thing, really, as well. You know, sort of the pre new stadium era, if you like.
Yeah.
There's quite a nice range of stuff on there now.
I like the idea of encouraging non-writer. I don't know, that's probably the wrong way to put it, but you know, somebody that has not written previously on any kind of professional level. I think the world of publishing has a certain intimidation factor, and this, I think, is a great way to try and just maybe reduce that a little bit. Listeners, you're listening to Merv. You can talk to Merv, listen to him. You can, if you've got something that you want to put out there, get in touch with him. It's a great idea. victorpublishing.co.uk if you want to put anything out, talk to Merv, and I'm sure that he can work with you. But yeah, good range of products on there, Merv. So hats off to you for that. The latest edition is 30 Millwall's 3 decades at the Den. It's available for $9.99 or $12.50 if you want Merv's signature on it. It's well worth a read, and it's got the QR code approach, which means you can check out the video footage to go with the match that you're looking at. It's a really nice idea. So big thank you to Merv for talking about the book today, mate. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks a lot.
Now, we can't close the show without having we've already answered one question, but we're going to bounce you with another question now, Merv.
Okay.
Another pundit question. No pressure. This is another one from England in the 1990s, the Premier League in the 1990s. This is a Flying Dutchman who stole and then broke the hearts of all those at the City Ground. A maverick on and off the pitch. He famously refused to play and was sold when the Reds and Nottingham Forest were relegated. So he's a Dutch player, played for Forest in the late 90s, went to Celtic.
I think I know it is.
He came from Dutch football, Feyenoord, Breda, Fenerbahce in Turkey. Most famously, Forest, 71 appearances, 36 goals. Then to Celtic, 69 goals, 69 appearances, 44 goals for the Celts. Played for the Dutch national team 46 times, scoring 14 goals, 1994 to 2004. Did you think you know the answer to this one, Merv?
I think I know it. I don't know if I better pronounce it properly, but is it Pierre van Hooijdonk?
Pierre van Hooijdonk.
Well done. Yeah. I got that because I got Nigel Martin, which is a bit weird.
That's 2 out of 2, Merv.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll quit on 2 out of 2.
Punditgames.co.uk, listeners, that's your board game. Big thank you to Merv. Now we're going to play out today's show with an interview I did with another Victor Publishing author from his stable of writers. It's Vinny Shell, who's produced a really amusing book on the ups and downs and characters that you meet in grassroots under 15s football. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Merv and take you over now to Vinny. Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.
So it's a huge welcome on the show now to a man who's done something that I've always said I would do, but never ever have. Big welcome to the author of a new book about grassroots football. It's Millwall fan Vinny Shell. Welcome to the show, Vinny.
Yeah, welcome. Pleased to be on.
Nice to have you, mate. I'm just looking at your new book, which is available at the moment. It's called The Gaffer, listeners, and it's available on Merv Payne's victorpublishing.co.uk. It's available on there for $11.99, and as the blurb says here, Vinny, it's grassroots football at its best and worst, and it's a fascinating account you've done here, mate. Well done for writing. As you were just saying off air, this is a lifetime's work, so to speak, for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a UEFA B coach, so started at a really early age. Started with my son, Alex. He was about 4. He went to a football session. There was about 30 kids, one bloke, and he just asked me if I joined in. I'd played football at a decent level, Kent League, and just got into coaching that way. But then in the end, just went through. I was reserve team manager at Ashford, Tunbridge Wells, Lordswood, and
Yeah.
also assistant manager at, dare I say it, Crystal Palace Ladies.
I saw. That's before I started speaking to Vinny listeners. I thought I didn't realise you're a Millwall fan. I hadn't read the prologue properly, and also I was Crystal Palace Ladies, so I was kind of steeled myself for a conversation with a Palace fan. And it turns out he's Millwall through and through, so that's made the conversation much easier. It's a kind of how would you describe it? I mean, I put down a semi-fictionalised. It's clearly based on the truth, but it's it's a descriptive piece about an under 15 side 2017 to 18 based on the truth. I'm taking it, but fictionalized around the truth. Would that be a description you'd use?
It's probably fair to say it's based on experiences.
Yeah.
And through those experiences, I've just tended to put a storyline around that. So when I say it's a lifetime's work, it really is. And I've just built it up from there, really.
Your experiences working with kids football at the grassroots level. This is under 15 side, as we've said here. I love the description. It's on the front cover of the book here, listeners. It's called The Gaffer. But the second piece is a tale of laughter, tears, alcohol, burgers, flatulence, wind-ups, bants, garbs, angry dog walkers, and dog shit Dave. I mean, that's got to be an intro there for you, Vinny. I love that. It does capture the humour of the whole scene, mate, doesn't it?
Yeah, and like I say, anyone who's been involved in grassroots football, it is quite funny at times. Especially when you're working with kids, yeah.
Standing in the pouring rain in all sorts of fields and whatnot, I imagine. I did love the opening sentence though, really got me, and I thought actually it kind of captures the whole book, which is, I think you wrote that your opening sentence, I love football, and you have to have a love of football to do what you've done here with working with the kids football, Vinny, but also to produce the book. The love of the game comes through loud and clear.
Oh, definitely, and that's why most of us do get into it. But I was just fortunate enough that it just progressed, and I never set out to try and reach the top. And another little just something I was involved in just through the football. Steve Birchmore, who was then head of recruitment at Millwall, he asked me to scout for them.
Okay.
Yeah. And interesting fact, one of my youngest son, Aidan, he played in the same Millwall team as Sid Nelson.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sid obviously briefly captained the main side under Ian Holloway. Of course, that's.
Yeah.
You must, the fulfilment side of it in that sense must be quite. That must be the reason why you do it fundamentally, Vinny. I'd guess that there must be something very rewarding about it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've never ever been one of these managers who sets out to win things at all costs, and I think even when I was managing at Kent Youth League and Kent League, it was always based around improving players and making the players better. And I've always had the firm belief that if you do that, then you will make better teams.
The hero of the book, if that's the right term to use, listeners, is one Vinny Smith. And the author is Vinny Shell. So I'm going to guess that Vinny Smith is loosely based on Vinny Shell, Vinny. Is that correct?
Yeah, not completely. I guaranteed I've worked with so many people in football. I had to be very, very careful what name I chose. And in the end, I'm just going to pump with my own and take the flak.
It's a wonderful book. It does capture the day by day. It's kind of a diary style approach you've done here, really, Vinny, isn't it? I mean, it's the storyline of the Dalworth United under 15 side 2017 to 18 season. We won't have any spoilers on this show, listeners. I'm not going to tell you how it finishes. You've got to buy the book to find out what happens with Dalworth United over that season. I was quite fascinated. I mean, obviously, we've mentioned the I Love Football opening, but also I think you use a sentence in the book that football management or coaching, as how you want to put it there, Vinny, is a battle of wits, and you get a lot out of that kind of I wouldn't call it a game of chess, but it's something like it, isn't it? It's a contest of willpowers and battle of minds almost.
Yeah, and funny enough, watching Millwall play at the moment, it's difficult to be just a fan. And
Yes, yeah.
yeah, and you can be really, really critical at times, and it's difficult to switch off the two.
Yeah, I think what comes over in the book, and we've all seen the TV documentaries on various clubs, at all levels. But the management of the various personalities, even in this under 15 side, and there's some really nicely drawn characters here. We've got the twins from the Nightmare Twins, the Hayes twins, who are boxing and MMA fans, and Billy Belafonte, a lover of takeaways, all sorts of characters. I mean, managing these various personalities is key, really, isn't it? And the best managers, I imagine, tap into the individuals and what motivates them.
Well, yeah, it's funny. The Hayes twins, Alex and Aidan, that's my two sons' names. Again, I've taken a crafty little dig at them two. And I don't think
only your dad can write this stuff in that case. Billy Belafonte made me. I don't know why I get Harry Belafonte, the singer, but lover of takeaways, and it's got some high comic moments through the course of the book. I mean, were you a natural for this, Vinny? I mean, you had no previous experience? Did you just kind of acquire this talent for? As you put it, you never know, you might be quite good at it. Did you clearly didn't know you'd be quite good at it when you started out in the football coaching management?
No, but I was fortunate to work with some really, really good people. Mark Patterson, the ex-Gillingham player, fantastic coach, learnt a lot from him. Simon Clifford, who did the Brazilian soccer, worked with him. So I've worked with some really, really good people along the way, and that moulded me. I think it's fair to say, yeah. So just learning from others, and I think as a manager and a coach, you've got to be willing to learn from others because it's the only way that you'll ever improve.
I would suffer with what they call imposter syndrome. That I'd be forever doubting my a bit of my right to stand in front of somebody else and tell them how to play the game. I mean, did you find that difficult when you started out, that you almost don't believe yourself, or are you a natural kind of leader in that sense?
I think I was able, although I was a fairly decent player, I've coached some very, very good players. But I think I never doubted my own ability as a football coach.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's where I got away with it to a degree. But I've had some terrible moments. When I took over Tunbridge Wells, I think we had 8 games left, and we only needed 4 points to be promoted, and I got 1 point out of the 8 games.
It's relegation form, Vinny.
It was definitely. So, but all I did was I ripped up the rule book, and then the following season introduced an under-23 side, and
right,
full of kids, and that was probably my best ever season coaching.
I mean, what comes over loud and clear through the book, and I think it's almost the concluding part of the book, is the reward that you've got personally out of management, and it shines through speaking to you now. I mean, would you recommend others try it? I mean, obviously, grassroots football is always short of people, and yet the game depends so much on kids coming through, doesn't it? And it's such a contrast between the highs and lows of football that the most essential part is often the least resourced. The park side of it.
Yeah, anyone can do it. You've just got to be dedicated. You've got to be really passionate about it.
Yeah,
and you've got to care as well. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, the book it's a proper book, listeners. We're talking about 300 pages. That must have taken a lot of work to put together, Vinny. I mean, I'll take my hat off to you. As I've said already, I've never ever. I make a start a lot on stuff and then stop, but you've kept at it, and I think that's. Have you written anything on this scale previously, or is this the first time for being an author?
Yeah, that's the first book I've written. I started it during COVID, funny enough, and
Time on your hands. Have you got any others in mind, or is this the first and the last for you, mate?
No, I'm going to do a follow-up to that, but
Okay.
I've also written 2 comedy scripts as well.
Okay.
One based in a school, which I've spent the last 16 years working in schools.
Yeah.
And the other one's The Tavern, which is based in a pub in 1665 at the time of the Great Plague in
Right.
London.
Okay.
So
That's an interesting idea.
yeah, and I've linked that in with COVID very much so. But both of those are with a production company, and I'm just waiting to hear. Fingers
Right.
crossed. Yeah.
Well, then you hear Vinny Shell's name first, listeners, on Achtung, Millwall. It's been a massive pleasure to talk to you, Vinny. And I recommend the book, listeners. It's called The Gaffer: Grassroots Football at its Best and Worst. Flatulence, wind-ups, bants. I won't read all that again. Dog walkers and dog shit Dave. Who was dog shit Dave? I didn't get to that bit. I quite like that name, dog shit Dave. Explain who dog shit Dave was.
I won't spoil it, but you'll get it when you read the book.
Buy the book, listeners.
Yeah.
$11.99. It's on victorpublishing.co.uk. Vinny, it's been a pleasure talking to you, mate. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. And can I just say a big, big thank you to Merv Payne of Victor
Absolutely.
Publishing.
Yeah.
The man's a legend, absolute legend.
I endorse that. Go.
No, I was just to say, if you have got an idea for a book, that's the man to go and see.
I was just going to make the same point, because his website, which I'm looking at the moment, victorpublishing.co.uk, actually makes that invitation. So if you feel that you've got a book inside or you've written something and you want to work with Merv, as Vinny's just said there, he's a Millwall fan, number one. And he makes it happen, Vinny, doesn't he? I mean, he's a very, very useful man to know in that way. So I second that emotion. Big hats off to Merv Payne. Vinny, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, mate. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much, Nick. Thank you for having me.
And just to repeat, it's called The Gaffer. It's $11.99. Get it on victorpublishing.co.uk.
Achtung, Millwall.